Hello and blessings, beautiful souls. Avalon here, and welcome to the very last contribution to this 24-hour Tarothon, which was organized by the lovely Simon at the Hermit's Cave and was partially facilitated, in her own creative genius by Kelly Bear. Lots and lots of channels have contributed to this 24-hour tarot phenomenon, as I'm calling it, and I have linked everybody's channel in the description box below. Before me was the beautiful story witch, Jessica, and I must admit that was the very first time that I was able to watch Jessica. I didn't know she existed on YouTube, and I instantly subscribed because I must say I was rather enchanted by her voice, and was really delighted to see her free form Celtic cross spread that she was doing, and she brought up some really lovely points there. Now, as far as this Tarothon went, I have been watching it since yesterday. I haven't been up the whole time. I'm quite unwell with the flu at the moment, and I may cough throughout this live stream, but I will do my best efforts to mute the mic. And but yes, I have been in and out of all of the as many that I could get, at least, of these live streams. And I saw Sammy today. I saw Melissa Salvaggio today. I saw Jessica, the Story Witch, yesterday. Oh, I think I saw Christina Celeste as well. And I've seen just a whole bunch, as many as I could. I've been popping in there and trying to say hello and just give them a thumbs up and a show of support. And so this is my turn now, and I'm going to be talking about intuitive tarot and making friends with your deck. That is the subject of this particular live stream. Every one of these live streams has had a beautiful subject attached to it. It was something that we all discussed in the private chat that Simon had arranged, and I was really excited to see so many wonderful ideas. I must admit, my favorite so far was Sammy's what was it, tarot in movies. She aligned the major arcana to movies, and I was there able to participate in a little bit of that. That was so fun. People got really interactive with hers, so it was really, really fun. But first, let me see if I can pop out the chat and like make sure that it all works. No, I can't. I remember now that I had this issue, so I'm going to toggle between. So, oh my gosh, there's so many people. Hi, Kelly. Hello to everyone who's able to join. I'm gonna hook in. So please excuse my voice and any spontaneous coughing that may occur. Like I said, I will try and mute. Just out of a little bit of fun too. If you are very new to my channel, then welcome. And for those of you who have been with me for a little while, then welcome. Just to know that right now I'm actually in a converted shipping container. This is my father's dwelling. I'm in a tiny house just next door. We're completely off grid. And the kids are a bit feral, so I jumped in here. My dad's in his bed just right over here. We've both got the flu, so you may hear a little bit of coughing. But I'm in a man's cave right now. Look at all the stuff. It's like man's cave business. So let's hook in and talk a little bit about the subject at hand. So, tarot for intuition. I put down some notes because I wasn't feeling well. Usually I'm not a big fan of note taking. I like to be a little bit more off cuff. So basically what I'm trying to say when I say make friends with your deck is really spending time with your tarot deck or your various tarot decks and getting to know them and know them really well. Now, I can honestly say that as a collector, which I am, I have many, many decks in my collection that I haven't made friends with. I haven't spent time with these decks, mostly because they are collector's item. Now, if you watched Melissa Salvaggio's, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly there, If you watch her video, she actually did her live stream on tarot as a collector. And I really resonated with some of the things that she said there. And the truth be told, I've got decks within my collection that are collector's item only. But the ones that I do choose to work with are decks that I'll continuously go back to and consistently work with just so I can make friends with them. Now, I want to be able to learn my tarot as best I can. And every deck that is created will offer you a different perspective on tarot. They're not all the same. And when you have major systems of tarot like the Marseille, the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Thoth, and so on, what you will get is a framework in which most people then overlay over a particular deck. Even if a deck doesn't really necessarily belong to that framework, and I'll give you an example of a deck that doesn't. That would be the Dreams of Gaia by Raven Phelan is a tarot deck that does not belong to a traditional tarot structure. Now, for myself, who is a lover of the Rider-Waite-Smith, and I do love the Thoth as well, but I am a little bit of a Rider-Waite-Smith girl. Most of my understanding of tarot comes from my understanding of the Rider-Waite-Smith system. And then what I do is I look at my deck and I try to draw those parallels, to draw those familiar lines in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meaning and the deck that I might be using at that time. Now, a long time ago, I realized that this was actually doing my tarot learning and my tarot discovery and adventure a bit of a disservice, because while I did love the foundation of Rider-Waite-Smith within my tarot structure, I understood something finally at long last, and that is that every tarot deck tells a different story. And whether or not it's Rider, whether or not it's Thoth or Marseille, doesn't matter. It's still telling a different story, and it will never be exactly the same as the framework in which it is associated to. So simply learning one of these structures, one of these main structures, is not necessarily going to help you to deepen your understanding of your tarot deck. And you won't be able to get more out of your tarot deck if you simply look at that structure alone. So these major structures are wonderful frameworks, but then spending time with your deck, examining the symbolism uniquely through a completely new lens, a lens of self-discovery and curiosity, and perhaps even attention to detail, that can actually help you to build up a deeper understanding of your tarot deck. And more than that, actually pull in some life experience that can then anchor meaning into your tarot cards. That will then help you to forever remember the meaning of a card. So, a lot of people struggle when they're first learning the tarot. And that's because there's that, "Oh my god, how many keywords do I have to learn?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't actually have to know any keywords, lovely folk, you don't. You just need to make friends with your deck and ask it some questions and look at it, and what does the card tell you?" So, I've got my shuffled, bone, stone, and earth flesh, and, I would like to hold my bone, stone, and earth flesh up, and I would like to say, well, if you knew nothing of tarot, what would this image tell you? This is the Three of Wands. There's a bit of glare. What would this image tell you? And what would this image tell you? I love this image, by the way. And what would this image tell you? The one thing that I absolutely adore is a good pictorial deck. And I think for intuitive tarot, a good pictorial deck can be very helpful. However, art is subjective, and what works for me will not necessarily work for you. And you know, and that's absolutely fine. But what I would like to encourage is that when you first get a deck, give it a little cuddle, give it a little kiss, and then do your process. For me, that means looking at the cards. I like to have a really good flip through. At first, it's simply just to acclimate myself with the deck, with the theme, and I'll flip through every single card. And I might do this flip through a couple of times. And I then grab my journal. This is a Foxy Fix cover and for all the journal lovers, and I've got a Hobonichi Tesho A5 in there, and a Pigma Micron, just for those who like their journals. Then I will take down my initial perceptions, my absolute first thoughts. Excuse me, sorry. I knew I was going to try and mute every time I coughed, but it just sort of sneaks up on you. So once I have jotted down all my initial first impressions, every take so much. The passion and emotion is so strong. Right on! Thanks, Billy's Craft Room. Loving it. Love Foxy Fix and Hobonichi. Talia. Yeah, right. Love your journal. Right. I knew there'd be some journal lovers out there. So once I've grabbed my brand new deck, and you can do this with older decks that you just haven't made friends with yet. Let me just say this. It's really good to make friends with your decks. So I write down my initial first impressions, and then I go through one card at a time and I analyze my cards. And I look at the cards and I look at the symbolism, and I take my notes down and I take more notes down, and any impressions and any feelings. I look at the sensory aspect of a card. What kind of image does it entice? What does it bring to mind? And what kind of a sensation will then follow? So take, for instance, the Six of Swords here. The Six of Swords has a chill to it, I find. And the beautiful lady is off at sea and she's doing a crossing. The water is turbulent. She has the star guiding her in the background there. But the whole scene is quite turbulent. It's got a chill to it. So it makes me feel a little apprehensive. It makes me feel even a little fearful for her. Like, where is she going? And so once I really look at this image, I can write down exactly what it is that it makes me feel. And if there's ever been a time in my life where I have had that same feeling, whatever feeling that might entice, following that, I will then go and put my decks through the works, and that is give them a really, really, really good cleanse and a good programming. So those who like to work with crystals will know exactly what I'm talking about. Some out there will get their crystal, they'll cleanse their crystals, and then they'll give it a good little programming, and it's a thing. But then what I'm talking about when I say programming is more about a dedication. What am I going to use this deck for? Does this deck feel like it is attuned to a particular style of reading? And this is where you get your all-rounders and then your attuned decks. There are decks that seem to fit themes like love readings or mysticism or any other real theme that's out there, something more analytical like academia and work. There's all sorts of attuned decks, and then you have your all-rounder decks, which are not necessarily attuned. They can simply be read in any circumstances. And so I'd like to give then a little note to determine exactly how I feel about the deck, whether or not it feels attuned and whether or not it doesn't. And so what do my notes say? Yes. Furthermore, on that subject, I like to leave the guidebook, if there is a guidebook, to the very last. Now, this is potentially one of the most important things. Now, a lot of people go in there and they hell for leather, and they're really wanting to know what the guidebook says. I would like to bring to your attention that this could actually do a disservice to your own personal interpretations and the depth of interpretation that you can get out of a card and or deck. Now, while the artist and the creator of the tarot will know exactly what they intended when they were creating their deck, the way that you use it might not necessarily fall in line with the reason or the way in which the deck was originally created. Now, I saw beautiful Jessica, the story witch, using the Green Witch's Tarot. Now, I own the Green Witch's Tarot. It's a beautiful tarot deck, but not every person that's going to be utilizing that deck is going to be coming at it from an occult or a witch perspective. They might simply look at it as a beautiful deck that has a nature theme or a pagan theme. And then if they jump into the book, you'll know, well, because Anne Moira created it, you will know that the deck has an affinity to green witchcraft, right? And this happens. So by leaving the guidebook until absolute last and doing the work completely yourself, it helps you to get a better handle on what the deck is going to mean to you, how you might be able to use it, and it will help you to better acclimate to the energy of the deck itself. So, my own personal perspective. What have we got here? Elephant Tarot. Gosh, there's so much. You guys. I'm just reading. Yeah, daughter from ABC. Ah. Yes, paper trees, earth magic. Yes. Paper love. uh, oh, thanks, Steph. Makes so much sense. To keep going intuitive instead of hitting the books. Well, there is a certain benefit to reading the books, and I have a list here, and I will be going over some really wonderful resources, things that hopefully will pop out of my mind. I've simply written down here tarot resources. I didn't write any resources down because I'm hopefully they're just going to come out of my brain. But yes, leaving the guidebook until absolute last will help you to make up your mind first, to trust your own instincts first, to engage your intuition before you interrupt the connection to your intuition by then trying to double check your intuitive hit with a guidebook. And guidebooks are wonderful. They'll give you a really great insight into the process in which the artwork was created and the vision behind the deck itself. But these are things that, in my opinion, should be left until last, just so as to not disrupt the bonding, if you will. So make friends with your tarot decks. When you make a friend in real life, do you go to their parents and double check exactly what their details are? You don't really do that. So why do it with a tarot deck? That's an odd way of putting it. I realize this, but it makes sense. Now, what did I have next? Now, my next tip is, once you have really written down all your own personal perspectives and really acclimated yourself with the deck and looked at it many times, not just get a new deck, flip through it, then flip through it again, then write it all down, but keep shuffling and keep looking at it and really, really look at it. And then my next recommendation would be to do a daily draw, a type of arrangement. Now, I've never really been one for doing daily draws at the very start of my day, because I find that this then influences my day. This might not be the same for everyone, but I am easily influenced, and I happen to really listen to my decks. And so I don't want to be influenced, but I would like the retrospective. And so this is what I would do in those times where I'm trying to get to know my deck, is in the morning, I would draw a deck, I would shuffle my or draw a deck, I would draw a card. In the morning, I would shuffle my deck, draw a card, place the card face down, not look at it, and then go about my merry way, have my daily experience, go to work, play with the kids, do the house, do the things, creative, catch up with friends, and do live streams on tarot. This is part of my life. And then I'd come back in the evening and I'd turn it over and I would see exactly how that card played out in my day and journal about that, about how it played out in my day. And then what that helps to do is create an affinity with the deck, with the card itself. So the Knight of Pentacles, in my beautiful bone stone. If anyone didn't know, I'm using my own deck. This is my sample deck called the Bone Stone and Earth Flesh Tarot. Yeah, and this is my Knight of Pentacles. And I've been unwell today. I've been quite practical at home. I've had to go and get firewood today in a wheelbarrow and wheel it up. I've had to go and manually work my compost toilet and fill up all the water jugs from various water tanks. And I've had practical hands-on labor that will ensure the harmony of my home. These are very earthy things. The knights, I find that they're really beautiful for movement. Wherever you see a knight, you know that there's a type of movement. The Knight of Pentacles, to me, though, moves the slowest out of all of the knights. And I've got to say, for the first time since I was a teenager, I woke up at 10:30 because I had Finnegan last night, knocked myself out, didn't crawl out of bed until 10:30 in the morning, felt oddly disoriented because I thought, what has happened? Where is everybody? The house is empty. I had a really restful sleep and I plodded along. Every achievement that I made today was all in good time. So I'm really feeling the Knight of Pentacles today, because while I was, yes, industrious and continue to now be, I moved very slowly, very methodically, and rather practically, only doing the practical thing that will ensure the harmony of the household and, of course, my health. Very Pentacles, right? So this will enable me to get the retrospective on the on the card that I've drawn for that particular day. How are we doing here, kids? Oh, oh, is the witchy mummy here? Thanks, Melissa. I was talking about you before, Melissa. I really hope I didn't butcher your last name. Oh. So much good chat stuff going on. So how many of you guys do daily draws? I would love to see a show of hands if you are a daily draw type of a tarot card slinger. Is that a little thing that you guys get into? It would be. Oh, great. Good to know, Melissa. That was me, Billy's craft room. That was me. Oh, yes, yes. So many yeses. I love it. I love it. I love it. So valuable. So valuable. You know, there is this common misconception that if you do daily draws, you have to predictively read, right? You don't have to predictively read. Doing a daily draw can actually be a journal prompt experience, which now brings me to journaling. Yay. I love it. I love it. So this is pretty much my tarot journal here. I'll show you a little page that I did because I have a card slinger tier on my Patreon, and I do monthly card, what do they call it? Journal prompts and art prompts and things like that. And that was one of them. And that was another one. So these are all coinciding with particular art and journal prompts for a particular month. and tapping into the theme of that month and getting in there and journaling. Now, if you're the type of person that likes to write, or you're the type of person that likes to write and do a little bit of art, or a little bit of collaging, or a little bit of paint splattering, just a little, art without judgment. If you're that type of person, then a little bit of tarot journaling is perfect, and doing a daily draw can actually help you to tap into some of that material that can help to prompt the muse, help you to connect with the muse. So your daily draw doesn't necessarily have to be something that reflects your day. It can actually be something that helps to trigger your intuition and your creativity simultaneously. And so, pulling a card and then thinking to yourself, closing your eyes and thinking to yourself, what does this mean? And if a symbol should appear in your mind, that's what you work with. If a color appears in your mind, that's what you work with. If a sensation appears, that's what you work with. And allowing the senses to get involved in the process can, again, really help to trigger the intuitive reflex. So the idea here is to create an immersive experience so that you really feel connected to the process. So it's not just a deck, it's an entire story. It's a whole world. I know the bone stone, I can say this because I created it. It's a whole world. It's a primeval world. And most decks are a world within a world, right? So take the time to delve into the world and have that emotive, immersive experience, and to really engage your senses. And one of the best ways to really trigger that is through journaling. Journaling is a wonderful, wonderful practice for creating a time capsule in every single page. It will allow you to chart your progress. It will allow you to exercise your creative faculties. It will enable you to engage with the muse, and it's such a healthy and wholesome and holistically nourishing experience to journal. Journaling is not just the Dear Diary that it used to be. Journaling is now more about the interactive, integrative, creative experience. And it's all about splattering a bit of paint. Like, let me tell you what I've done here. I'm not an artist. I don't ever say to people that I'm an artist. But what I did here was I tried out cross hatching over here, which I'd never done before, and I tried stippling here, which I'd never done before. And then I thought, oh yeah, and then I did some hand lettering down here, which I try my hand at from time to time. But it was just a way for me to engage in a little bit of creative output, working with, we were in the month of July, and we were working with the moon babies, the Cancerians out there, the intuitive connection with the self, the spirit, and the moon, the lunar body. And so I was drawing moons and, trying to get in the mood in that way. And it was very helpful. Where are we? Oh, Jessica Starr, that's right. Gotta love it. Gotta love a little bit of journaling. I just wanted to give a really big shout out to Simon, who, despite the fact that he said that he would not be staying awake for the whole thing, he has in fact been awake for 24 hours, and he has appeared in every single person's live stream. What an absolute champion. Can we just give him a good round of applause? Because I think that that's really supportive. Yes, he created this idea, and he has really been supporting each and every channel who has agreed to participate, showing encouragement, and giving them the good thumbs up. So feel free to capitalize any questions that you might have. It just having your questions in capitals helps me to determine which is a question and which is just a statement. Oh, Billy's craft room, careful. Shouldn't call people artists willy-nilly. Simon is a machine. So yes, when we get to journaling, journaling can be a private experience, and it can be just a very literal experience of writing thoughts and feelings, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I actually really enjoy splashing a little bit of paint. I'm a I'm a watercolor lover. I love the Daniel Smith watercolors. I find that when I start to play with watercolor, I I I also I hold pagan beliefs here, so I'm a practicing pagan witch. And for me, utilizing watercolor is engaging with the divine because I believe that water is the conduit to the divine. And I think the Daniel Smith watercolors, especially their I'm not sponsored to say this, I wish I was, but their Primatech watercolors are actually made from ground up crystals, actual crystals. Amazing. They're so good. And so, as far as paint goes, that's the most magical paints that I know of. And so I like to splash a little bit of watercolor on the page and allow the creative flow. Another thing that I really like about using watercolor is that you can spray your page and then start layering down little splashes of watercolor and then watching as they move, and they'll create their own little shape. And you know who taught me that? Miss Anna Luna Solare, who's the artist in the Bone Stone, and then my beautiful artist friend Erin Duncan from Erin Duncan Illustrations. Uh, you know, it's amazing what working with a bit of color with a little bit of paint can help to do, especially in conjunction with your tarot. So pulling a beautiful card, let's pull a beautiful card. Maybe you can make this an exercise. So I'm just going to give you the option to make this an exercise, and then if you choose to do this, you can use the hashtag 24-hour Tarothon as a means to share it out. So, oh, I've got the Wheel of Fortune, which is the Norns. And so let's say that you drew the Wheel of Fortune, and you can look at the Wheel of Fortune here. Hopefully that'll allow you to see it. And so I've got the Norns there, they're holding a strand. Now I'd like for you to really look at this card as much as you can, and then write down a few little notes, and then create yourself a little journal prompt uh, to go with this particular card. And then perhaps do a little writing, engage your senses, then do a little painting, splash a little bit of paint around. Art without judgment, folks. Nobody needs to see this if you don't want to show them. But if you do want to share, it doesn't need to be Michelangelo's work, Botticelli, who, by the way, is one of my favorite Renaissance artists. But it doesn't have to be Waterhouse quality. It just needs to be a way for you to connect with the card and express yourself at the same time, and also to help to make a memory. So, by sitting there and actually writing thoughts and feelings down in your journal, enables you to really think about what the card means for you, and not necessarily what the card means globally, what it means for everyone. What did it mean in the Rider-Waite? What did it mean in the guidebook? What did Rachel Pollack write about it? Or what did Marcus Katz write about it? It doesn't matter. What matters is, what do you see in this card? What does it mean to you? What kind of experiences and memories and thoughts and opinions does it trigger for you? And then, after you have made up your mind definitively and you've journaled about it and you've created something beautiful, then go out there and have a look at what everybody else has to say. And maybe then you can build upon your own perceptions of this card. But until you've actually done the work, don't cheat. Don't go looking for the answers. Make up your mind first. Have a crack at it first. You look for the answers later on. You know what I mean? So I'd love to see if anybody actually does a little journal prompt with the Wheel of Fortunes and the Norn Fortunes. I just pluralize that because I'm sick and I can't think properly. Right, so we have gone through journaling and the importance of journaling and the importance of having a good journal. Hobonichi has Tomo River paper, which is a beautiful. It's the thinnest paper in the world, but you can do watercolor and you can write with it on your fountain pens. It does not bleed, folks. The Japanese did a really good job on that, I must say. Now I get to one of my favorite subjects, which is pathworking. So I always like to leave the reference material until last, right? So guidebooks until last, reference books on tarot till the very last, right? So do these steps first and then get there. Hang on, I've got a cough, so I'm going to mute. Mm. Okay, Dad and I both coughed at the same time then, just so you know, it was a bit fun. Right, so path working, meditation and path working is my next chat. So after you've acclimated, you've written down your opinions, and you've gone through the deck itself. After you've done some journaling with it and some daily draws, and as journal prompts or as the retrospective look, then you can start to get a little bit deeper. And this is to meditate and to journey with your cards. Now, path working is one of my absolute favorite activities to do with a deck and with specific cards, and this is something that I would definitely recommend doing, especially if you've just done yourself a reading and one card in particular is tripping you up. So before before you reach for the book to try and figure out, oh my god, what does this card mean, because it doesn't make sense to me, it's here in this, it's holding a pivotal place in my spread, and I just don't know how to stitch it all together. Well, hold your horses, lovey. Just take a moment and put it aside for a minute. Grab your card. Oh my god, best one, the magician. Grab your card and create a little pathworking experience for yourself. And a pathworking means to is a means to unlocking the potential of a card. This is something that you can do with a whole deck, but that would require you to do 78 path workings. If you're using the bone stone, it would be 79. But to do it with one card that is calling your attention. So if you have stalker cards, which are, a lot of people know what I'm talking about when I say stalker cards. If you have a card that is perpetually stalking you, every time you do a draw, it comes up. Or, somebody's doing a daily draw on Instagram, and it's the damn card that's just following you around, right? So these are the cards that you want to journey with, because you want to understand the deeper meaning behind it. And the only way that you can do that is by connecting with the card and understanding what it says. So pathworking is a very spiritual, interactive experience that enables you to enter the card and to journey through it. So it's an active meditation called a pathworking. So my advice to you is set up a nice little cozy sacred space. For those of you who aren't really kindred into sacred spaces, that's totally fine. You can do this in your car if you want to, but it just requires a relaxed visual. So you would relax. There's a relaxed visual aspect. You can do this with your eyes open, where you simply gaze at the card and you allow yourself to step into the card. And in here, you might step into the magician card, and you might go, well, what's he got? What's going on here in the middle? And what are these books on the shelf? And you just move through the card itself. Does anything speak to you? Is there any other elements? Does the bird on his shoulder actually talk to you? And allow yourself to have the spiritual interactive experience through a path working and or a meditation. And a meditation can also help you to deepen your understanding of one single element of a card itself. And looking at this card, what is the first thing that you notice? And it could be the skull on the back of in the back of the card on the shelf. And so meditate on that skull. What does it mean? What's it bringing to mind? What does it connect to? And how can it help you to better understand the meaning of the card in this particular situation, in the instance of a reading where it is the most pivotal card? So, path working is a wonderful way to get to know the card from a personal interactive perspective. And no two path workings will be the same. You could path work, your best friend could path work on the same card. The experiences will be different. And that is because it's all about personal perception. And your way of reading is very, very unique to you. And it's something that should very much be nurtured. And path working is just another way of gaining another very unique perspective to you, to help you to really integrate the meaning of a card into your personal tarot repertoire. It's good stuff. Hey, got the wrench. Okay. what are we what are we talking about? What have I missed? That magician is so Dumbledore. This magician, he's the best, isn't he? I kind of went for Gandalf with him. I really wanted the Gandalf feel. I wanted the magician to be quite commanding and ancient in his way, quite wizardesque, because that's how I felt it should be. I'm teetering between hot and cold here. How are we doing for time here, folks? Oh, holy doolies! Okay, 5:30 to 6. I'm going to 7. Oh wow. Okay, I'm actually doing all right. I thought, yeah, I didn't realize that 40 minutes went past. Right. Okay, so we've talked journaling, we've talked pathworking. Next, let's talk about engaging the senses. there there is this this beautiful technique that I learned through uh, tarot professionals. I'm a member of the tarot professionals, and it's part of their it's part of their introductory learning structure, and it's all about the senses, the elements, and the senses. And this is a big shout out to Marcus Katz and Tali Goodman. And it's all about the senses, and what does the magician look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? Engaging your senses as much as possible to really help to understand the um, the tactile component of a card. The magician is a very active card, has masculine energy connected to fire as the other element, or air and fire. It's Hermetic principles, particularly in Rider-Waite-Smith. So it has above, so below. You know, you know, you know what I'm talking about. Excuse me. Hang on, I've got to mute my mic because I've got a cough. Okay, just coughed up a lung there. It's really lovely. And yeah, so engaging your senses. Now, there will be those out there who, without realizing, can be quite intuitive and may already do this and have that sensory trigger, because every card will come to you with a sensory trigger and make you feel something. Like, the cards should make you feel something. In fact, I'm a big advocate for images to be on the side of disturbing, just so that you can feel something. And I don't mean disturbing in a horrific sense, but in an uncomfortable or unique perspective that shifts you out of your comfort zone and gets you looking at a card. Take this one, for instance. This is the Nine of Swords. The Nine of Swords is a card of fear, it can be, right? Along with many other things. And so the inspiration for this card, believe it or not, came out of the never ending story and the nothing, right? Because fear is something that is quite unique to the individual. What I fear will be very different to what you fear. And so fear itself doesn't have one face. And it really does come down to the unique experience of the individual perceiving the card, or perceiving the fear in this instance. So allowing yourself to have the sensory experience can help to engage your intuitive faculties even more. So it's really about liberating your senses so that you can actively and openly experience your cards. Not just look at them as a separate entity, but have that, immersive experience that I've spoken of. Oh my God, I got a cough again. Holy doolies, that rocked my world. Right, let's read. Color me shocked. Haven't seen your channel for a while. I would expect no less. I think that when you start school, it makes you forget your intuition because you are eager to learn all the new stuff. So now I'm starting to learn intuition again. Beautiful, lead in. Passes you hot water, lemon, and ginger. Right on. I do have a little bit of fresh lemon and honey in there, and bring up that long. It's doing you no good where it is. uh, oh, right. So engagement of the senses, and so as I was saying, in this little tarot technique that I learned through Tarot Professionals, it was in relation to the elements, and this is something that you can absolutely do with the elements, and look at what each element looks like, feels like, tastes like, sound like, etc. So run through the sensory experiences, but likewise you can do this with particular cards, especially particular cards that make you feel apprehensive. Now we know that there's the big three in tarot, uh, and then there are just difficult cards like the Three of Swords, which for many doesn't necessarily trigger the best of memories. And the Swords actually holds quite a few, doesn't it? A few unpleasant cards, especially if you're looking at it from a traditional rider perspective, the Nine or the Ten. And the Threes, they're not necessarily the most comfortable cards to look at. The Bone Stone doesn't do them an injustice. In fact, it's quite, we might have gone a bit on the side of ghastly. But no, I wanted to pull out the High Priestess here, because when we talk about intuitive tarot, we're really talking, excuse me, about the High Priestess here. We're talking about journeying with the High Priestess, and liberating the intuitive faculties. Now, the one thing that I loved about the High Priestess is that she knows so deeply and so profoundly, but is incapable of articulating that which she knows, because it's full sensory experience. It's a knowing that just goes beyond the intellect and goes bone or blood deep. It goes right down to the organs. It hits the ethereal body, goes beyond the physical, it hits the ethereal. It's something that is recognized by the soul. And so enabling that sensory experience can help to really trigger the intuitive response and really do honor to the internal archetype of the High Priestess that exists in all of us. We all have these tarot archetypes. I must cough again, please excuse me. So let me have a look at some of the questions. Ah. If you're enjoying this live stream, I should say, please give this one a little thumbs up. Click the little thumbs up button down below. Someone has already thumbs me down. I get trolls. They just love to thumbs me down. Little do they know that they actually contribute to my AdSense earnings. So sucked in. So, okay, so we've talked about engaging your senses. I've got here taste, touch, sight, sound. Now, let's talk about spreads. Right now, I am the type of person or the type of reader that does not use spreads. I used to be hard and fast Celtic cross spread girl, believe it or not. In my early days of tarot, I had the Sacred Circle tarot, and it's an oldie but a goldie. It's kind of photography, kind of Photoshop kind of thing. Like, it was late 90s, early 2000s, and yeah, it had a really chunky guidebook. and it had quite a few spreads in there. Now, the one that I tended to go most for was the Celtic Cross, and it's the most complicated. It's the most complicated spread, really, when you think about it. It's not a spread that I would ever recommend for a beginner. Oh God, it's not really a beginner-friendly spread at all. In fact, I find that spreads are very beneficial when beginning, but they're also quite counterintuitive. And it's for that reason that I no longer read with spreads, and I am a freeform reader. So, some of the spreads that I would recommend for the beginner is not the past, present, and future spread that is ever so popular. I find that this, just like I don't advise people to, draw a single card at the start of their day because it could, influence their day in one way or another. Past, present, and future just keeps drudging up the past, and it's not. Why do you need to know the future every single day? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not. It's just meh. It's meh. It's like, no, that's old hat. That's old school. No, not for me. So I prefer to do the Maiden Mother Crone, the Mind, Body, and Soul, and the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. They're my three. They're my three that I like to do. If I'm going to do any kind of spread, then I do my deck interview spreads. Other than that, I like to create spreads from time to time, just to share with others or to utilize myself. They're just a bit of fun and something a little bit different. But I don't really like too much structure in the way that I read tarot because, like I said, it can be very counterintuitive. If everything sits neatly into a little box, it freaks me out. It just doesn't feel right. And so I like to lay my cards however I like to lay them out. It then enables me to really weave together a story. No card is in any set position. So you have to actually look at the cards themselves to determine where the key is, where the power player is, where the high point is, where the low point is, which cards are instrumental, what bridges the story together. And it's so much more interactive and fun to me in that way. And so I prefer to go freeform. But spreads can be incredibly, incredibly helpful for learning to understand positioning and learning to understand things like bridging cards and learning to understand the overlap and, things of that nature. And which you will have in a traditional Celtic cross. You have cards overlaying, that's crossing another card. And yeah, so it depends. How many of you out there enjoy spreads and how many enjoy a free form style of reading? No positions, but then anything could happen. That's right. Never heard of those spreads before. No, no. They're just mine. Uh, Thanks so much, Philippa. I will try to get better soon. Freeform reading is such an art. It freaks my anxiety real. Oh gosh, you got to give it a red hot go. You demonstrate your freeform reading. Oh, I could, but I can't. Well, actually, I can't because when I usually lay out about 10 cards, and I just don't have the space to do that right here. But maybe I will on my channel another time. And I do like to, um, yes, freeform reading is so nourishing. I actually do talk a little bit about it, and this is giving myself a little bit of a plug. I've put together a course called Witch Weaving with the Tarot for Tarot Summer School. It's live now on Tarot Summer School. It's $28 US. And in there, I talk about the key, the triangles of power, and things of that nature. And that helps when you're doing freeform readings, and it helps to identify power players. And I've got little, little activities to help to determine where those weighted cards might be, where the major players are in a reading. It's very helpful to be able to identify, cards with a particular weight. And there's always a common misconception too that, within a reading, it's the major arcana card that always weighs the most. While yes, it does, it holds a high energy within a reading. Sometimes it's the minor card that can really be the very stitch that holds a whole reading together. And that makes it very interesting to me. So, yeah, just absolutely beautiful. Freeform, I find, is really liberating to the intuitive faculties. It can really help you to get out of your comfort zone. You have nothing to rely on when you're freeform reading. It comes down to you, to your abilities as a reader. So it's like putting down your crutches. Put down your crutches, you go freeform, and you just have a really good time of it. And when you freeform, it's a holistic type of experience. Every card is very loud, and understanding the story, to begin with can be a little bit challenging, but over time, when you start doing it more and more, you tend to understand how the story weaves itself together. Sometimes you need to read halfway through to then go, "Oh, I get it now. These two cards, they're yes, I understand." You have your revelation experience right in the middle, and it can be really exciting because you have to do your own digging, and then it becomes really, really beautifully exciting. My poor dad's over there coughing. Yep. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful times. So that's yeah. That's the idea behind spreads and freeform. I find spreads can be very beneficial, and I still love to see the people are creating spreads. And I really appreciate, a good spread from time to time. I love a good deck interview spread. I have my own deck interview spread. Melissa Salvaggio, she talked about her deck interview spread, and that was really interesting. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, so you should have a look at that one if you haven't already. But who's here? Who's here? Let's see. Oh, look at it. So many beautiful people here. Right. So we're talking a little bit about spreads versus freeform and some really nourishing spreads. Sometimes a really great spread is a full moon or a new moon spread, and it's asking where your focus is, where the power is for this moon phase, where your focus could be, and how can you really bring into fruition that which you are aiming to bring into fruition. And so designing little spreads for new moon and full moon can be very helpful, or going out there on Google and having a look. Instagram has heaps of it, and it's just lovely. It's absolutely lovely. Now, what more can I say? Hmm. Yeah. I guess my advice would be to keep your spreads short and simple to begin with, unless you're the type of person that is a very experienced reader who loves their spreads and who's going to go out there and do a full-on Celtic cross, or a Romany gypsy type of spread. And oh gosh, there's some really big ones out there. Now, let's talk a little bit about getting through fear and apprehension. I think this is a good one. There is a lot of there can be a lot of fear associated to sort of liberating your intuitive faculties and helping and making friends with your tarot deck, and just knowing your tarot deck as an old friend can really help to get through some of that fear. Sometimes it can be a fear of knowing. We all want to know, but then when we know, it can be a very scary thing. And so sometimes there's a little bit of fear. Sometimes when your intuitive faculties, they pop up to speak to you and they give you a little hit in a way, it's not necessarily under the best of circumstances. Sometimes it can actually be in a circumstance where you're looking for some good news and you might actually get some, some not so great news come through in that intuitive hit type of way. And that can actually cause a little bit of fear and apprehension. And sometimes the fear and apprehension that can be associated with trying to connect with your intuition can be something that's a little bit of old programming. Perhaps things like intuition weren't necessarily something that were encouraged in your household. Perhaps the concept of intuition was considered silly in your circles. Perhaps that was early influence. Who knows? But there are, in fact, some, and in fact, many. I've had students in tarot circles myself. You can see the fear. You can see the fear in the tarot, the fear in the tarot itself, not necessarily the outcome that the tarot might bring, but in the tool, in this occult tool that is the tarot, the tool of the devil. Well, it's not the devil, and we know this, right? But there can be a lot of fear there, and that fear can actually help to hinder that connection with your intuitive faculties. And your intuitive faculties are really important in a reading. They're going to help you to really, really personalize a reading for your client, for your friend, for yourself. Your intuition is the compass. Your intuition is the thing that is going to give a reading a depth of meaning and a profound experience as a whole. So there can be a little bit of fear, there can be a little bit of apprehension. So it does help to figure out exactly what tarot means to you. So, what is the tarot? Not what other people think that the tarot is, but what do you think the tarot is? And what do you think the tarot can do? Now, there is common misconceptions out there to this day that tarot is simply used for predictive readings only. Now, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't use tarot for predictive readings. I can if I'm doing divination with tarot, but it's not my preferred method. I like to do, I like to work with tarot for, spiritual progression and life mapping and, things of that nature. But back to what do you think the tarot is used for? And answering these questions for yourself and looking to better understand what the tarot is from a past perspective as well as a modern perspective and what tarot might be for the future. So, the way that we used to read tarot in the past, my mother is an old school tarot reader, and she, she's of that era where the court cards, they are people. They are people. And I'm a modern reader with the court cards. They are people, yes. They can be archetypes and personalities also. They can be events, overarching situations, and they can be individual moods and landscapes. They can be so many things, right? They are no longer just people. And so, understanding what tarot used to be, the perceptions of tarot in the past, and understanding what tarot is today can help you to determine exactly what tarot means to you as well, and how you feel about the tarot as well. And so, going through the trouble of, you know, looking to really understand tarot as a holistic system can really help to break down the apprehension and the fear. At the end of the day, what we're looking at here is um, cardstock, images printed on cardstock, images that people like you and I have given meaning to. And any fear that goes beyond that really then uh, is something that is definitely worth exploring, because if there is fear, then why is it there? What projections are you putting out there into these flimsy bits of cardstock and the images that are there upon it. So there is a lot more that can be determined, a lot of shadow work that can be done in that regard. Thank you, Billy's Craft Room. I've never been called the Queen of Swords before. I'm usually called the Queen of Wands. I always think that I'm like the fool. Hang on. That's so funny to me. That's so funny. Sometimes I'm temperance. Oh, I was freezing in winter. It's pretty cold here. What's the temperature in here, Dad? Not sure. I reckon it'd be about 8. You reckon? I've never been called the Queen of Swords before. I've got to text Alora just so that she knows. I have people that I associate to the Queen of Swords. My fingers are frozen. I just got called the Queen of Swords. Oops, can't spell swords today. I'm lolling. And I also use the emoji of the sword. Thank you, iPhone. Uh, yeah, lemons all the way, guys. Send me your good vibes. Because I'm down. My hubby's down at the moment as well. My dad's down. My uncle's down. The kids are the only one. I've got 3 little ones. They're the only ones that are not down. And I couldn't get into the doctor until Thursday. Today is Monday. So I'm going to just be like, oh my God. Now, what more can I say? Yes, fear and apprehension. And, going back to pathworking and meditation, fear and apprehension can actually be annihilated through a deeper understanding, through a genuine and deeper understanding. And when we look at the 3 big cards, like when we look at the death card is one of those cards that, for the person that doesn't actually understand tarot, it can be the hugest fear trigger. Can it not? We all know it. We all know it. Someone will be joining you in your chat in 10 to 10, at 10 to 10. Right on. Well, I've given him the link. He knows. He knows when to pop in. And yes, so very exciting. So, yes, doing your path working, doing your meditations can help you then to really abolish the fear that you might be experiencing towards a card. And then learning different ways of actually looking, new perspectives, and this is a great time to then jump into resources when you are stuck, when your intuition isn't speaking to you like it needs to at that moment, because the fear has then been allowed to step in, or the apprehension is then taking place. Then it's a great time to lean into things like the guidebook, to lean into different perspectives. Now, I'm of the opinion that when you're looking for information, you look for the answer across no less than 5 different sources. So your guidebook might be one of those primary sources, but I encourage you to go and find at least 5. 10 even. The more resources you have at your disposal to help you to shine a new and much more empowering perspective on a card that you might be struggling with, the better a job you are going to be doing, and you're going to be doing yourself a good service. So, and that will help to really bring down that fear, that level of apprehension that you might be feeling towards the tarot as a whole, or a particular card within the tarot. Now, I'm not the card that actually triggers the most fear in the tarot for me, and yes, I have cards that trigger fear for me, is the 5 of Pentacles. Being without. That's really, really like, and I know my natal chart, and I have old wound that really resonates with the 5 of Pentacles, and it's a very triggery card. And our fun fact is that when I did my year ahead spread at the beginning of the year, I got the Five of Pentacles in December. December. December is that time of the year where you do not want to be without resources or health, where you do not want to feel like you are without or left out. It's just not the card that I wanted to see in December. And so I'm still spending time with the Five of Pentacles to help to break through that apprehension because it's there. You know, I'm not bothered by the Tower. I'm not bothered by death. I'm not bothered by, the Three of Swords. I'm just not bothered by these cards. The Five of Pentacles is my nemesis. It's my nemesis. In fact, this is a fun question. What is your nemesis card? What card is your nemesis? What card does it every time to just go, oh, shit. Why? Why did you appear in this reading? Which card is that for you? Tell me. I want to hear. I want to hear. Yeah, being without does not resonate, right? Seven of Cups, right? Eight of Stinking Swords. Oh, I love that card, Veronica Jude. That's one of my favorite cards. Seven of Cups. Yep, yep. Okay. Two of Swords. Interesting. Yeah, well, the choice. Five of Wands. Conflict. Elaine, you don't like conflict. I see, I'm very fiery. So, Five of Swords is my favorite five. It's the only one that actually wants to be in conflict. It's constructive competitiveness. I love it. Nine of Swords. Yep, yep, I get it. Or the Three of Swords. Yep. Eight of Swords. Oh, there's a couple of Eight of Swords. I just love that card so much. My favorite depiction of the Eight of Swords is in the Anna Kay Tarot. My second favorite, and now probably my first favorite, is in the Bowstone and Earthflesh. Seven, Four of Pentacles. Interesting. I never expected to see a Pentacles. Good for you, Kay Brown. Oh, how interesting. Ten of Swords, Two of Swords. Oh, lots of swords. Look at the swords. Yeah. The Two of Swords and the Queen of Swords, Gemini. Nice, nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, five of Pentacles is mine for sure. I actually need people to tell me. Tarot Alchemist, that made me giggle. I actually like the Devil for the wild abandonment aspect. Sometimes you just need to get a little wild, don't you? Four of Pentacles was my latest one. You is the latest one. My heart. Oh, love it. Swords are scary as hell. Swords are actually one of my absolute favorite suits. This is a great question to ask, in fact. What suit do you read really well, and what suit always trips you up? What is the suit that most trips you up? What is the suit that you just nail every time, the one that you really resonate with? For me, the suit of swords, I rock it hard. For the one that trips me up the most is the suit of cups. Yes, I can read it, but I lack a lot of water, and I'm not ultra sensitive, so it's very emotional, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable you know when I'm just not necessarily all that emotional. So for me, it would be cups, but I nail the suit of swords. Yeah, that's my favorite. Struggle with pentacles, really. Understood, understand. Yeah. Comes through anything. For me, it's wands. Oh, really? Oh, great. Yeah, yep. You struggle with cups too. Struggle with wands, Stacey. Gosh. Wands is really fun for me. Wands are the hardest. Oh, lots of people there with the wands. Love cups. Oh, some people struggle with. Oh, love it, love it. Great synergy there. Yeah, well, there is that as well, and so in this regard, it can be really interesting to actually do meditation on entire elements. Oh, I've got like 15 minutes to go. I've got 15 minutes to go. I didn't even see that time flew. So meditation on elements, um, meditation on the whole element can help to better understand it. So I have to meditate with the Five of Pentacles, but when it comes to cups, I often do meditations for water and path workings for water, mirror entries, and things like that. It can be really fun, and I spend a lot of time next to water as well, which is helpful. So, yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's really interesting. And I must say, the times they've changed because throughout your career as a reader, some cards can really trip you up and then they come to understand. I know that temperance is said to be one of the cards that is the most difficult to read or for people to connect with. And yet temperance is a card that I have always deeply connected with. And yeah, I guess the Chariot used to be my difficult card to connect with, or perhaps even Judgment used to be a difficult card for me to connect with. Now I've sort of gotten over that, and you know I've made my peace with those particular cards and their meanings, and have deep respect for them. But the Five of Pentacles is a pain in the ass. So let's go and have a look at some tarot resources. Let's see if I can think of some tarot resources to mention here for you. Well, I think one of the best tarot resources is actually YouTube. Now, I say this a little bit warily because there is always there is always that chance that you might actually be learning from someone who doesn't know anything about tarot. So while there is some incredible resources out there on tarot, if to be found in YouTube, I've also found some, some channels with really, really big numbers and absolute zero knowledge on tarot, and yet they're very much in an educational perspective. And I'm not talking about disagreeing on meanings of cards or disagreeing on methods of reading. No, like zero knowledge. So while YouTube can be an incredible place to learn the tarot, it's really important to cross-reference your resources on YouTube and just to know exactly who you're learning from. And there are some wonderful, wonderful channels that will teach you a whole hell of a lot on tarot and how to look at tarot from a very unique perspective. There's some really passionate, creative, authentic individuals sharing a lot of information and knowledge on tarot. And then there's of course the books. The books. If you're interested in tarot spreads and understanding positionings of cards in tarot spreads and how to potentially create your own spread, then Barbara Moore has actually got a spreads book out, and it will tell you bridging cards and crossing cards, and it will give you some great insight into tarot spreads. So that can be a really great resource for you. As far as 101 tarot resources, I was always a big lover of Kim Huggins' Tarot 101 and Marcus Katz and Tali Goodwin's Around the Tarot in 78 Days. With this said, I am a huge fan of Rachel Pollack, and so her Tarot Wisdom book and 78 Degrees of Wisdom, just lovely, and absolutely love them. And just sort of can't go wrong with Rachel Pollack. She is a wealth of experience to me. Uh, Kim Huggins and Barbara Moore are great, wonderful, wonderful resources. Absolutely. And uh, yeah, and so there's those really great ones, and I'm trying to think of. I've got some other ones actually. I've got my Kindle here, and I on my just my Kindle app on my phone, and I might have a really quick look at my Kindle app. And okay, so Around the Tarot in 28 Days is here, definitely and for sure. Oh, yes, tarot and astrology. That's another one. That's a really good one if you want to learn to merge tarot and astrology or an understanding of tarot and astrology. Um, that's in here somewhere. I haven't come across it yet, but it is in here. Psychic Tarot by Melanie Howard and Nancy Antonucci. That's a really, really great one. Uh, it's got some wonderful examples of why you should really listen to your intuition when you're reading tarot and make space for it. Ah, got Simon here. He's popped in to say hi.
Do you want me to say? I'll say hello now.
Yes, go for it.
I tried to find the right moment.
I'm at the end anyway, so anytime, mate. Anytime.
Yeah, I know this. I just wanted to come on because we was talking in our group, and I was going to come on at 10 o'clock and do just a little bit of a thank you, really. But then that would have took it past the 24 hours. And Avalon very kindly said that I could join her just for the last few minutes because, firstly, just to say, we've done it. I mean, this is absolutely mind blowing. It doesn't seem 24 hours since I was last sat in this chair kicking this off. It just feels like a few hours. And even the night that I thought would be the longest was the longest, but it still flew by. And I think that is because we've just had some really amazing content that has been put out through these 15 other brilliant YouTube channels that have just been so enjoyable, so informative, and I'm just blown away. I've got my journal at the side of me and I've written loads and loads of stuff down from everybody. So firstly, just to say thank you to Kelly Bear, Christine and Celeste. So Christine, Shane at Read the Wonder, Kelly at The Truth in Story, and can I just say an extra little thank you to Kelly because she did above and beyond her 1.5 hours. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, and just so we wouldn't lose the stream, Kelly continued on until we was ready to hand the baton over. So thank you. Veronica Jude, thank you. You've been great. And Veronica's been up for over 40 hours because she got no sleep the night before, and she's still here and she's still going strong. Jennifer Ball, thank you. You persevered even though you lost connection. And the great thing with that was everybody in that chat continued chatting so that the chat continued for the full 24 hours until Jennifer was back in and was able to migrate across to her next connection. So thank you to everybody that's supported in there as well. Jeff at Tattooed Spirit, Andrea, Crystally Rama, Tara, Kittens, Weights and Tarot, Annika, Nobody Here, Samantha Menzo, Melissa Salvaggio and her amazing collection, Zach at Tiger's Abyss, Jessica Starr, The Story Witch, and your good self, Avalon, who, again, another special thank you because you've ploughed on. You know, despite being under the weather, you haven't rained off, you've continued going, and it's just been an absolute blast. So thank you. Yeah, thank you to everybody who's done the content, but also a huge thank you to all of you guys watching and commenting. There has been a number of people who have done the full 24 hours. Too many to name. There's loads of people. There's been people who have said, I've managed to do 12 hours, I've managed to do 15 hours, or I've only managed because of work and commitment to do 1 or 2, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to watch all the videos afterwards. So you've made it brilliant as well. There's been a real good mix of content and study and fun and everything else, but a great mix of chat as well. So thank you to everybody for your commitment and for being here today. So I don't know what else to say other than, you know, in just a few minutes time, I think we have just managed to accomplish in 2 weeks. This idea started 2 weeks ago and everybody was on board. Everybody's already talking about Tarothon 2019, a long way off. But what we've been able to do is, you know, short of miraculous, to keep it going without any breaks at all. And for the quality of everything involved has just been absolutely mind-blowing. So from the bottom of my heart to everybody that's been involved, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Namaste.
Oh, Simon, you've done a wonderful job to put it all together in just 2 weeks' time. Like, I remember when you sent me the original message. I know that you're really busy, but would you be interested in this? And I'm just like, how can I say no to this? This sounds amazing. Like, it's 24-hour tarot. Like, what? And if I wasn't so sick, I probably would have been one of those diehards, awake. And I was up until about 11 o'clock last night, just like, I was chiming in. And then I got up this morning after I had like a comatose sleep, and I'm chiming in. And whenever I could, I would connect with whoever it was. And the thing that I liked most about it is that it gave me the opportunity to discover channels that I did not know even existed. Because you know what it's like, Simon. It's one of those situations that YouTube is so big. There are so many channels out there, and you can't just find them so easily. So it's nice to have this opportunity to be introduced to new channels. I would really love it if people actually brought back the channel shout out so that I could get to know new channels, because that used to be how I found all my favorite channels, is when
Yeah.
people did shout outs. I could then go, oh my God, didn't even know that person existed. So, and subscribed that way. So I would really like to see people do that again. Just to
Yeah. No, that would be really, really brilliant. And, you know, not one person, yourself included, needed to be begged, even though when I approached you 2 weeks ago, you'd just done your video about just arriving there, you know, just setting up home. You was completely upside down, and straight away you was like, yeah, tell me the date, let me have a look. And you were straight there, and everybody was the same. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. So much so there were some people who, you know, we're a little disappointed that they couldn't be part of it, but maybe next year, maybe we do 24 people, you know, and we do an hour each, or whatever. But that's a long way off. Let's just enjoy what we've had over the last 24 hours, because I've just loved it. And I got my second wind about 3 a.m. and now I'm buzzing. I don't even know how I'm going to go to sleep, but I will, because I need to.
I just can't believe that you've stayed awake for this long. I remember you originally saying that you weren't going to, like, I'm not going to stay awake, for the whole thing. But you have been there. And every time I've popped into one of the chats, I'm like, is Simon's Cave here? Oh my God, you're still here. What a machine.
I couldn't have missed it. I really couldn't have missed it. Not only because I asked people to commit, and I kind of want to, support them for doing that, but when I saw the lineup as well and what people were going to be covering, I was just like, I want to go to that. I want to go to that, and just go to it all. Just go to it all, and sleep can wait.
That's the best part about it. I think it's one of those, when you go to a fair and there's all these great little workshops, you got the opportunity to go to pretty much like how many 16 tarot workshops, and individually hosted by different people, and you got a really good feel for a person's style and for a really good subject matter. And that's always something that can be very nourishing to the individual who's a passionate tarot reader, who's learning tarot, or who's simply a well-learned tarot reader who's after a different perspective. So I think there was a lot of benefit here for every type of tarot reader, and that's really nourishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And lots of people in the comments through the last 24 hours are saying this is like attending the best conference on the planet, with all these workshops free of charge. And we do it because we love what we do, and we love the interactions. And if I had a penny for every time somebody typed the words last night, this community is amazing, then I'd be a rich man. And I echo it. This community is amazing. We've proved again, we've just one other thing that we've done, that this community pulls together and pulls off something for the benefit of all those involved. So yeah, thank you.
And that's exactly right. It is a beautiful community, and it's a community that is very nourishing one to the other. And it's a wonderful community that will always be there in support. And and it's such an interactive community. And you're absolutely right. This experience is one that is such a live, interactive experience. And for those of us who don't get the opportunity to go to major conventions of tarot where you can have a similar experience but in person, this is something that gets a little bit closer to that and helps to create that unique perspective and that feel of multi-person tarot learning and international tarot experiences and lots of different perspectives. And it's just really good food for thought, and can really help to boost tarot inspiration as well, which is a very, very positive thing. You always want to be inspired as a reader, and you always want to look at something from a different perspective. And this is what helps to enable growth as a reader, and to really open your eyes, and yeah, just to create a richness of experience that is unparalleled, really.
Yeah. And yesterday when I started off, we waited for the first bong of the town hall clock, and I don't know if you'll hear it. Did you hear that? That's 10 a.m. That's 24 hours done. That it's just brilliant. So thank you, Avalon. Thank you, everybody. And I'll let you close us out for
All
your.
right. Well, that's it. Like, I think I got through all of my points, and I just really wanted to say thank you to Simon, and say thank you to Kelly Bear, who put up some amazing graphics, and to let you know that all of the channels that participated in this 24-hour Tarothon will be listed in the description box below. I highly recommend you check out every single one of these broadcasts. You can take a week to do this. There was so many great subjects touched on. Each person gave their all, and it was such an interactive experience. And thank you to everybody who contributed to this 24-hour Tarothon. Thank you to Simon for inviting me to contribute and to close up the broadcast. And I was here for the little gong of the bell tower. That was very exciting. And now I'm just going to crawl off into my little hovel and die a little bit. All right, guys. Well, that's it from me. We have been here. I've been here for 1.5 hours, but we have just completed 24 hours of absolutely amazing tarot. And I hope you guys have all enjoyed it. If you are interested in seeing a 2019, then my advice is to petition Simon. And leave comments, of course, always. Rightio, folks. Well, that's it from me. I'll be ending this broadcast right now. Thank you to everybody who was able to join. Thanks to all those who have commented. Thank you to all the beautiful, information that has been shared, to those who have just been making that chat. This has been the most rapid chat that I have seen for a very long time, I must say. Like, those comments were coming fast and furious, and the interactions within each other were really, really, there, and such great reflections and such wonderful comments. So big thank you to the entire audience and for their awesome vibe. Thanks, guys. That will be it for me. See ya.
Bye.
Oh, thanks,